Here's my beautiful toilet, and as you can see, the bolts holding it to the floor have rusted out, which is causing movement with the bowl, which isn't ideal. So I went to Screwfix and got this fixing kit, which has the bolts, wall plugs and caps, and just got stuck in. Now I'm not a plumber, so I did make a couple of mistakes on the way, but I will point these out so as we go along, you can avoid them. And of course, if you want to copy anything in this video, you do so at your own risk. So the first thing we want to do is locate and turn off the isolation valve. This is a kind of switch that feeds water to the cistern. To turn it off, all you need to do is rotate it 90 degrees so that instead of going parallel to the pipe or parallel-ish like mine was, it's at a right angle, like so. You can then flush the toilet until it no longer flushes to get most of the water out of the cistern and then take the lid off. My toilet has this push button top which unscrews a bit. It made me think I could just unscrew it to remove it, but I couldn't get it to come off despite looking up a few videos on YouTube of similar ones. But as you can see, I found a workaround. Actually, just that. With the lid off and the cistern mostly drained of water, the next step is to drain the remaining water. The best tool for this is a big sponge, where you just suck it up bit by bit. However, I didn't have one to hand, so I've just used this dog towel trying to get stuff out because I don't have a big sponge. I've only got like little weedy sponges. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just resigning. There's about 1 centimetre left in there. Probably just going to let it piss out on the floor, mop it up with this other towel. Next, you can remove the wing nuts that secure the cistern to the pan, and after that what you should do is unscrew the valve to the cistern and then the screws that hold the cistern to the wall. That's not what I did, which was to unscrew the screws at the bottom of the cistern that the wing nuts came off. So this is mistake number 1 that you should avoid. The reason I did this is that I thought I was being clever, saving time, not having to take the cistern off the wall. If I could just disconnect these screws from the bottom of the pan, they were preventing the pan from sliding out. But of course, there's actually another nut between the two that hold the rubber cone washers to the bottom of the cistern in place. So unscrewing these actually added more time, as I now needed to screw them back in later. But you've done it the correct way. So all that's left to do with the cistern is to lift it off and set it aside. You may find this easier said than done, however, because there's a donut seal which connects the cistern to the pan, which could be stuck right on there. So there's a need for caution because you don't want to lift the pan up as well. What you need to do is sit on the pan while you lift it up, i.e. not the direction you normally sit on the toilet, and lifting it with your arms only, not your legs, as this could lift the pan or pull on the soil pipe. You may need to wiggle it side to side ever so slightly as well to help you lift it out. Then comes the fun part, where you need to slide the pan out away from the soil pipe, and if you have a bucket handy, once that's out, you can tip the toilet juice into the bucket to avoid making a slip and slide on the floor. In my case, I did need to mop up the floor anyway because of the previous mistake that I mentioned, but once I'd cleared that away with a towel, I could see where the previous fittings were. Seriously though, whoever put these in, why were they happy with that? Firstly, I tried to see if I could get a grip on the metal remnants to twist them out, but no luck. So I used my bolt cutters to trim them down a bit, hoping I could get some kind of flatter surface that my drill bit would appreciate more. But this is where I made mistake number 2. What I did was try drilling these as is, but the drill bits wouldn't stay on because they're like little mounds, so it just kept deflecting them off to the side. So to remedy this, I slid the pan back into position and then proceeded to drill for some time until I felt the bit go down into the floor on both sides. This was a mistake for 2 reasons. Firstly, as you can see, it gave me holes that were both left of the previous fittings, meaning that if I use them to fit the toilet, it's going to be in a slightly different orientation. And secondly, while I was lucky that nothing broke, there is of course a big risk in having the drill bit inside the bolt hole of the pan, because if it makes contact when it's going at full pelt, it could crack or break the pan. Therefore, I wouldn't recommend that you copy what I did here. Instead, what you should do is use a screw extractor drill bit that can bite into the rusted parts and unscrew them properly, and then you can swap out the plugs. Luckily for me, the wall next to my toilet isn't at a perfect right angle to the wall that the cistern's on. It's an acute angle, so the toilet being slightly perpendicular and away from that wall isn't noticeable to the eye. In any case, you just need to make sure that the new holes for the wall plugs are deep enough that the whole plug will fit in and that they're wide enough too. My drill bit was only 7mm, but the plugs were 8mm. So after getting the hole deep enough, I very carefully wiggled the drill bit around to widen the hole. And once that's done, you can go ahead and hammer in the plugs. Before you go ahead and put everything back together, It's a good idea to give things a bit of a clean while they're dismantled too, especially if you're reusing the pan steel like I did, which you can see had a bit of a crack in it. I put this at the top to avoid leaks, but having it face the wall like it was before would have been a better choice to make it less visible. With everything cleaned and wiped, you can now put it all back together. Start by sliding in the pan. And while you could test that the bolts fit in place, don't bolt them down all the way right now, as it's best to get the cistern on first and then slowly tighten the pan to the floor and the cistern to the wall to make sure that nothing is going to snag and crack. When it comes to screwing in the bolts, best to use a socket bit like this, which connects to the outside of the bolt rather than the flathead, which is a pain and most likely thread itself. Just be careful not to over tighten, so set the drill to like a medium torque and then slowly clock it higher until the bolt sits just right. I gauged this by how the plastic washer was just starting to warp or it's kind of sunk in a bit. With the pan and cistern now fully secured, you can connect the lid back up, screw the isolation valve back into the cistern, and then open the valve to how it was before. To test that it all works without any leaks, just give it a few good flushes, and then you add the finishing touch of popping on the caps to cover the bolts. That's it for this video. A bit of a bodge job as you can see, but the channel does have its name for a reason. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. Let me know any tips in the comments below. For more how-to repair videos, subscribe.